To start the video, I just want to welcome everybody to the channel. And in this video, it will be one of many documenting my time as a conductor trainee at Norfolk Southern. To start, we will take a look at what I did in Georgia for the first 3 weeks of training. And then from there, we will take a look at the first jobs that I did at the yard in Bellevue, Ohio. To start the training process at NS, before even sending you down to Georgia, they would get a group for a class together before sending you all down. The first initial week in Georgia, they would teach you the basics of being a conductor. The main parts being of which would be learning how to climb on rail cars, how to stand on a rail car, and how to do hand signals with and without a lantern. To start the second week of training, they would start off by teaching us the basics of the handbrakes and how the air brake system works. And part of that process, they also showed us the air tanks on rail cars and how they operate and how Westinghouse was the guy who invented them. And if any of you guys have any free time, it is a very interesting read on how Westinghouse invented the air tanks on rail cars. Towards the end of the second week of training and starting the third week, they would start off by showing us how the radios work in conjunction with the operation of the train. And in the process of that, they would take us to one of the lower floors and show us how it would work using train models. After that process of the radio, they would take us back up to the main classroom on the main floor, and that is where we would start learning the hazmat cards and what they mean, and what the safety precautions you would take if a train would ever derail or have an accident that would have these hazardous materials on board. And we would later take a test at the end of the third week on hazmat. Starting in week 2 of training and going into week 3, this will be when they also start teaching you the signals of the railroad, as the signals are the most important aspect as they govern the movement of your train. For most railroads, most of their signal systems are divided in 3 different territories, as there is multiple railroads that are part of the family tree of the modern day railroad, as they inherit multiple signal systems. For NS, the signal systems were the N&W, the Southern, and Conrail that they acquired from the Conrail split merger in 1999. For further information on how the signals work and how the movement of trains work on the railroad, be sure to check out some other videos on YouTube by other rail fan creators and railroaders alike, and there is videos on there that you can find describing these operations a little bit more in depth. And for week 3 of training, which was the final week, was mostly for testing. The biggest tests of which being a test on your knowledge on the hazmat and making sure that you understand the signals and how they work and what each signal indication means. Also, in part of this testing, they would also test you on what they call a hang test. They would test you and see if you can hang on the side of a simulated rail car for about 3 minutes. This test is where a lot of people would fail, but also a lot would also pass. Directly after your in-class training in Georgia, you would drive back up to your home territory and report to your home terminal. Unless you have to relocate, which they give you a week to do that. For me, my home terminal, as stated previously, was Mormon Yard in Bellevue, Ohio. For the first job for on-the-job training was the NSDE 28, a local on the west yard of Bellevue that would switch cars for locals that would go out of Bellevue, and for Tower Automotive, which was on the south side of Bellevue, that got truck frames. Following that local would be the second local I would work that would also be on this side of the yard, was the DE 17, a yard switcher that was strictly in the yard and worked Monday through Friday. The yard at Bellevue would originally be built and opened by the Nickel Plate Road, which would later be taken over by the Norfolk and Western, the N&W, in 1964. What is left of this time period is the nickel plate turntable that can still be seen on the West Yard. NS would later expand this yard in 2015 to the size that it is today, becoming the largest rail yard on the NS system. For the next part of the video, we will be on the east side of the yard, where you will see the East Yard and the Route 4 and Ranger Towers that control both ends of the hump yard. Also shown on this side of the yard is the east yard, where crews will bring in road trains and tie them down or take them apart for the hump crew to divide the cars by the territory or the yard that they are going to. Also shown on this side of the yard is a locomotive facility where they maintain locomotives and where crews will gather consists of locomotives for a train that they are building. Also on this side of the yard is where the hump is. These days, everything is done by flat switching. And you will see a closer up photo of the skate retarders that they use to slow the cars down to prevent an incident like I have told you guys about in a previous video. The main local for this side of the yard was the DE-23, a yard utility, which has a mixture of duties, like moving around locomotive consists and putting cars together for road freights that would leave the yard at a later date. And that will conclude this volume of my days at NS. For volume 2, we will take a look at the first local that I worked, the NSL 20, that ran between Bellevue, Ohio and Huron. Make sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. This is Pennsylvania Central Depot from Bellevue, Ohio. Thanks for watching.